Welcome back to Behind the Mic. Brad and Keith hanging out here from Grunions on a Wednesday evening, talking a lot of college basketball so far tonight. We talked a little bit about Syracuse, a little ACC tourney, what the Orange have to do to make it into the tournament. And now we're going to come back here locally to Southern California, and we're going to talk with a guy who covers USC basketball, both men and women's basketball on a regular basis. He's a writer for SB Nation. You can check him out. He writes for the Conquest Chronicles, as we now bring in Mr. Matt Lowry joining us here tonight on Behind the Mic. Matt, how you doing tonight? Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty good tonight. Just glad to see these conference tournaments get underway. It seems like it's been taking forever for us to get here.
I'm telling you, we're all stoked about it. Myself, Keith, everyone else, we're huge just March Madness junkies. Can't get enough of it. As we talked about, Pac12 Tournament officially tipping off today in Vegas. A couple different teams were in action. You had Colorado defeat Arizona State earlier, 97-85. Doesn't look good right now for the Sun Devils, Matt. What is your take on some of these early games? You know, Stanford defeated Cal as well. The Cardinal looked impressive. Some of these early games so far in the first round of this tournament. What do you make of these wins? And, what does it mean for USC coming down the road here?
Well, with Arizona State, and I guess you could say it's a positive and a negative for USC, because USC did lose to ASU. Remember, they blown a lead late into the game against the Sun Devils, where a win could have helped them. But it also helps them. It also helps the Trojans too, because now the Colorado win, and which by the way, the Trojans swept Colorado. That win now becomes a quadrant one win, which the Trojans desperately needed. As you know, this year, the committee split things into 4 quadrants when it comes to wins, and I believe Colorado climbed up in the RPI after that win. So with that, I think the Sun Devils, at this rate, I think the Sun Devils are out. That late stretch, and what I guess you could say a down year in the Pac-12, going 8-11 in the Pac-12. At this rate, I have them out of the NCAA tournament, but I also think that could possibly help USC's cause as well.
Let me ask you this: how bad is the SC loss to UCLA at the end of the season this year? Because when you look at it, you know, they're on the bubble right now, and it kind of looks like they need to win outright in order to even to pretty much get in. What it looks like, I mean, they have a great chance, but with that loss to UCLA, how does that hurt them in any way?
Well, the USC loss to UCLA, which is them officially meaning they got swept by the Bruins, that didn't help SC at all, because I felt one of those wins would have secured USC in the field of the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. If they hang on to one of those wins, then we're not having a conversation of them being on the bubble. So that hurts them pretty significantly, just because of that could have secured a spot for them. That pretty much would have locked them in.
Yeah. And
B, they possibly could have had a shot at possibly winning a share of the Pac-12 regular season title.
We're talking with Matt Lowry from SB Nation tonight here on Behind the Mic. Matt giving us some insights into the Pac-12 tournament, USC specifically as well. So, Matt, USC, they get that bye, fortunately, into the quarterfinals tomorrow night. They await the winner of Oregon State-Washington, which is currently going on. Those two tied at 19 late first half. USC, which team would they prefer to face tomorrow? Do they want to take on the Beavers, or do they want to see the Huskies?
Well, I put it like this. If I'm USC fans, I would want Washington to win. And hear me out on this before anyone starts panicking. With that, if you beat Washington, then that's another win that adds to your resume. And if that's another win that adds to your resume, that means you have a stronger chance at making the tournament. Remember, the thing for USC is they want to take this out of the committee's hands. The simple way to do it is by winning your conference and getting the automatic bid, and then and then just relax on Selection Sunday. But if it can't come to that, at least beat Washington, where you strengthen your resume a little bit and help your cause. That way, if you were to face maybe somebody like I don't know, maybe somebody in the who in the Pac-12, or if you make it to the Pac-12 championship game, then you're pretty much good, because a lot of people are saying all USC needs is just 2 wins to secure their spot.
Let me ask you this: How bad of the injury of Benny Boatwright really hurts USC? I mean, he went down that Oregon game, and now they have said that, reported that he's out for the season. I think, personally, me looking, when I watched him even last year when they played again in the NCAA tournament, he was a big contribute to that. And then now you see him now, and he's not playing. He's not playing right now. How does this hurt them at all? Should SC fans be worried going from further down the line right now?
That hurts USC significantly, and as I put in one of my articles when he went down, the loss of Boatwright means that the Trojans lost a good chunk of versatility on the floor. Because with Boatwright, he gives you the ability to stretch the floor, because he can shoot from the outside, and he can also rebound. But now that you don't have that, that's depth that you don't have on the bench, which for whatever reason Andy Enfield don't utilize as much depth on his team. But that's less depth that you have. And two, another issue with that is now you get predictable without Metu or Rakocevic being in foul trouble. Now you have to kind of go to your bench and see what you have there, because say for instance Metu ends up in bad foul trouble.
Yeah. Then
you have Rakocevic there, and then after that it's like you kind of have to go with small ball there. But I mean, they can sustain it. They can sustain it for the Pac-12 tournament. I think they'll be okay. But if they get in the NCAA tournament, that's where it's going to be hard, because once they make that run, then it's like if they try to make that run, that's where it's going to hurt them, because they're not going to have that versatility or that scorer off the bench that they can rely on.
Where do you think this team's mental state is at as they head into this Pac-12 tournament? Coming off of the losses we've mentioned to UCLA at the end of the regular season last week, going into this, being the 2 seed in the tournament, coming into the regular season, Matt, as you know, high expectations for this team for the most part. They were knocking on the door of a Sweet 16 appearance last year for the first time in a decade. Does this team have a run in them, once again in the tournament to make a Sweet 16 because of where expectations were at the beginning of the season? Are people still expecting that with inside the school, or have things changed now because of the injuries and such?
I honestly believe things kind of changed with the injury. I mean, with the team, they feel they can make a run. The team feel that they can make a deep run into the tournament, and there's no doubt to believe that they can't make a run. They can make a run if everything goes right for them. However, the issue with USC, and this is even with Boatwright too, the issue with USC is they get into a drought where they can't score. I think that's where they miss Boatwright the most. But they get into an issue where they don't score and teams make a run and they can never recover. When the tournament comes, we've seen in previous NCAA tournaments before, when teams make a run, it's about how can you sustain it. How can you handle when other teams are making a run at you? And that's something this team has not shown the capability of handling other teams while going on a run and sustaining leads. That hurt them earlier in the season against Stanford, against ASU, and against UCLA quite a few times. So, but I think this team, I think the mental state with this team, I think they're ready to get after it in the Pac-12 tournament. I think they feel they can win the whole thing.
Let me ask you this, but don't they oppose, with Boatwright injury, don't they pose a matchup problem now? Because when they had Boatwright, they were, like you said, they were a versatile team. They can stretch the floor. And now that they can, you got these teams like the Washingtons. If they play Oregon State, could that be a possible matchup problem for them? Like, now teams can really match up to them, but before they really couldn't.
With USC, with Boatwright, the reason why it's such a matchup problem is because Boatwright can take you off. He's the only, well, I don't want to say the only big, but he can take guys off the dribble.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, especially with teams that they go with the traditional power forward of the standard post power forward, they have to come out and try to guard on the perimeter. Now, with USC, now you have Rakocevic and Metu. Now you have size down low. So they still have somewhat of a matchup issue down low because now you got two guys who can rebound. With Metu, sometimes it's like here and there with them, but you got two guys who can rebound. So there's still a matchup issue, but it's not as significant as we think. Or not as we think, but it's not as significant as it would be with having Boatwright.
Once again, we're talking with Matt Lowry from SB Nation here on Behind the Mic. Who needs to step up, Matt? With the injury to Boatwright, is it Metu? Is it McLaughlin? Who needs to step up for this team to be able to make that long run and, at least to keep them in these games and to weather some of these long droughts?
Or better yet, I kind of just want to touch on Brad's thing. What about also, he said that, but also Elijah Stewart? Is he that guy, is he that X factor as well?
He is, because he can shoot from the outside. The thing with USC is when they go cold, it's going to be trouble. But when they're having a good shooting night, and mainly most of it comes from Elijah Stewart. When they get Elijah Stewart going, then everything's going to be all right. It's going to be a good night. That's when the offense can really flow. So Elijah Stewart has to be that X factor. He's going to have to be the guy to step up. He's going to have to be the guy to step up for the Trojans if they want to have a chance. If they want to have a chance at winning the Pac-12 and making a deep run in the tournament.
What's been the best thing about covering this team this year, Matt? For the beginning of the season, with everything that they've weathered through the injuries and everything that we've talked about here tonight, what have you enjoyed the most about the 2017-2018 version of these USC Trojans?
The potential that they have, the amount of potential and the talent that this team has. And, at times that can be frustrating. It can be frustrating as a USC fan because you think this team can do so much better. But just seeing the talent that this team has compared to other teams in the nation or the other teams in the Pac-12, you can see why they finished second, and the fact that regardless of the opportunities that they had, because we can look back and we can sit here and say, well, if they would have won the Stanford game, if they would have won the UCLA game, if they would have won those games, they would have won they would have won the Pac-12 title, and most likely they would have been in first place, despite losing to Arizona. It's kind of like how you look at the football team, how last season, not this past season, but the Rose Bowl season, when USC went 1-3 to begin the season. And you were like, well, if they wouldn't have lost to Utah, if they didn't lose to Stanford, and so you truly look at it with this USC basketball team. If they didn't lose the games to Stanford or to UCLA, or to Arizona State, this team would be in first place right now. So that just shows the talent of this USC team and what they're capable of. I think that's the most exciting thing about this USC basketball team. And this is honestly, I think these last 2 seasons, this has been the best USC basketball team that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Matt. I got a question for you, though, in terms of the Pac-12 tournament. Who is the sleeper team coming out the Pac-12 that can possibly shock everybody when you look at it? I mean, you got the Pac-12, it was wide open this year, up and down. It was up and down. It really wasn't like a dominant team. But when you look at it, who is that team that is the sleeper that you got to watch out for?
Quite honestly, I can give you 2. I think there's 2 teams in the Pac-12 that's that sleeper team that you have to watch out for. Washington and Utah. With those 2, I would say more of Utah, because Utah has been a pretty solid team consistently this year. So I would say most likely if you had to pick one, it would be Utah, but I would have to say Utah and Washington. Not only that, Washington is a team where once they get it going, it is hard to beat them. They can play with anybody at any given time. We saw it during the Arizona game when they played Arizona and they defeated Arizona in Seattle. So that is a pretty. I think Washington is a pretty good team that people got to watch out for, and I mean, one of those teams are going to play their way into the tournament. I think one of those teams can sneak their way into the tournament if things go right for them. If things go right for either one of those teams.
What's your take on Arizona, Matt? Should Wildcats fans be concerned with everything, all the black clouds that are currently circulating over that program, the Sean Miller situation? Are they on upset alert pretty much from here on out?
I would say yes, because with Arizona this season, Arizona's tricky this season. And the reason I say that is because you don't know what you're going to get with Arizona. I mean, we could sit up here and talk about the FBI situation, the Sean Miller situation, all of that. But at the same time, Arizona this season you don't know what you're going to get with them. It's either Arizona looks like one of the best teams in the nation, or Arizona just plays below standard. And I don't know what we'll get with them. I think, honestly, I'll tell you guys this. I think they're on upset alert tomorrow against Colorado.
Yeah.
I think Colorado's a confident team who could go in there. They've beaten the Wildcats once. I think they're a confident team that can go in and that can beat the Wildcats. But again, I just don't know what we'll get with Arizona. I never know what we get with them. It's either they're one of the best teams in the nation, or they're one of those teams where you're just like, how is it that this team can be like this? They're like USC. They're a lot like USC. Just for whatever reason, they tend to put it together and take care of things. But they're exactly like how SC is. You never know what you'll get with this team.
Follow him on Twitter at Matt A. Lowry. SB Nation, check out SB Nation's section for the Conquest, Chronicles, everything USC athletics related. Last question for you, Matt, before we let you go tonight. How far does this Trojan team make it the rest of the way?
For the Pac-12 tournament, I think they can make it to the championship game. I think they'll make it to the championship game for Pac-12 tournament. I think they get in. Based off of what I'm seeing on the bracketology, don't be surprised if they're in the play-in game. I think, honestly, this team can make it as far as I'd say the second round, or not the second round, but the quote-unquote third round of the tournament now, depending on where they're at. I think they can make it as far as the third round, or the second round, as people call it. And if anything, don't be surprised if they make the Sweet 16. I think this is a team that's capable of making the Sweet 16.
Without Benny Boatwright, huh?
Yeah, I think they can do it without Boatwright. If they can get hot at the right time, and if they get the right matchups, in which at this rate it looks like they're going to get the certain teams at the right time, I think this team is capable of making the Sweet 16 and surprising some people.
He's got the pulse of USC sports and the Pac-12 conference. Matt, thanks so much for coming on today. Matt Lowry from SB Nation. We appreciate the time, and enjoy the tournaments. Enjoy all of March Madness here coming up.
Oh, thank you, and thank you guys for having me.